Max Verstappen broke a whole pile of records this season. There are so many that I won't bother listing them all here. In a season with 23 races, he won 19. But did you know he almost didn't win some of the races he won? Let's look at 3 races that Max Verstappen won by being in a team that is just as flawless as the 26-year-old Dutchman is himself. I'm Wimbo, here's 3 seconds to leave a like. Miami. The first race that Verstappen shouldn't have won was the Miami Grand Prix. The quali sessions showed a few things we've seen all year. Max Verstappen was the quickest in Q1 and Q2, then the inevitable happened and Leclerc made a mistake and caused a red flag. Unfortunately for Max, the time he set wasn't fast due to a mistake he'd made in that first run. So the title defender started P9 and his title rival started on pole. That's right, Perez was a title rival then, and his father was confident his son would win. It's important to note that Perez was still pretty confident with the RB19 then. It didn't have any upgrades and it behaved more to Checo's liking. Verstappen struggled a little in the first few races. He did however discover something during the Azerbaijan Grand Prix that would help him the whole season. During that race, he and his engineer Giampiero Lambiase tried all kinds of setups to improve the tire degradation. He found the sweet spot, but it was too late to catch his Mexican teammate who won the race on the street circuit in Baku. So Perez started from pole and his race was pretty uneventful. Max Verstappen overtook Magnussen and Leclerc in one go in lap 4. The RB19 had a very powerful DRS at that stage of the season and Max Verstappen swooped past all the cars in front of him. By lap 15, Max had overtaken Alonso and was P2. Perez was the first of the 2 Red Bull drivers to pit in lap 21, as is normal for the leading car, and obviously because Perez had started on mediums. Max Verstappen inherited the lead because he had worked his way up from P9 to P2 and his hard tyres lasted longer. Max Verstappen pitted in lap 46 and Perez took over the lead again, but only by a small margin. However, the pace of Max Verstappen was so blistering fast on his fresher tyres that it didn't take him long to catch up with his teammate and pass him in turn 1. So Verstappen won the race from P9 against the guy in the same package. Amazing stuff. Monaco. The second race that Verstappen could have been beaten in the 2023 season was the one in Monaco. It was clear that there wasn't much between the Aston Martin package of Spanish veteran Fernando Alonso and the Red Bull package of the then 2-time world champion Max Verstappen. Verstappen did set the fastest time in Q1 and Q2, but in Q3 Alonso had set a brilliant lap that gave him provisional pole. Verstappen had 2 sectors that were slower than Alonso, and it wasn't looking good for him to grab that all-important pole position in the Principality of Monaco. As we all know, that is 75% of the battle done, because overtaking is near enough impossible on that street track. When Max clocked the second sector time, he was 2 tenths behind Alonso, who did have a slower last sector. You could tell by the way Verstappen was driving that he was pushing and it paid off. He ended up a tenth quicker than Fernando, one of the best qualifying sessions of the season. Fernando Alonso, starting from P2, had put some pressure on his Dutch friend by saying Verstappen's starts had been inconsistent, hoping it would play on his mind during the start. It didn't. Verstappen took off on mediums while Alonso started on hards. This turned out to be a masterstroke as Verstappen was the first one to complain about his tyres. He said that his front left wasn't looking pretty. Verstappen urged GP to look at the pit strategy, but the answer was simple. If we pit now, we'll fall behind Fernando. Alonso didn't have this problem with his harder compound. Then it started raining. As often in Monaco, it wasn't clear if the rain was to stay for long or how heavy it was. At lap 54, Alonso pitted, swapping his hards for mediums, and that turned out to be a crucial mistake. Max Verstappen was told that Alonso pitted for dry tires. He yelled at GP that he needed inters.
We need inters!
As the rain had become heavier. In that last lap, before pitting, Verstappen lost loads of time sliding and being extra careful. That didn't prevent him from touching the wall when entering the pit lane. Alonso finished his lap on mediums and had to come in again for inters. He stayed in P2 but was nowhere near Max Verstappen anymore, who won the race with 30 seconds to spare. Opinions differ on what would have happened if Alonso had pitted for intermediates. I firmly believe that he would have been in front of Verstappen after the pit stop. This was a race that Verstappen could have easily lost, hadn't it been for the Aston Martin team that opted for the wrong tyre. Kota. Charles Leclerc had put his car on pole position with Norris in P2. Lewis Hamilton started on the second row in P3. Hamilton, Verstappen's old nemesis, turned out to be the biggest challenger for the win this race, especially seeing Max had to start on P6 due to a lap time getting deleted for exceeding track limits. A thing that has happened way too often to way too many drivers this season. So the race started and Sainz overtook Hamilton, also something we've seen a few times before. I can't help to think that prime Hamilton would have been away quicker and wouldn't have allowed that to happen. The pace of the W14 was better than that of the Ferrari, so that wasn't a problem. But it does cost time and is bad for tyres. Verstappen had started to overtake drivers in front and overtook Sainz, who had already lost that position again to Hamilton. Hamilton overtook Leclerc a little bit later and had his eyes on Norris in front of him. Verstappen did the same a little later. The Red Bull strategy team called in Verstappen on lap 17. He was the first of the front runners to pit. He took a new set of mediums. Mercedes left Hamilton out and he struggled on his tyres, locking up here and there. To make matters worse, Verstappen was already in his pit window. Hamilton was fitted with a set of hards. Mercedes had waited too long and had allowed the undercut. On lap 29, Verstappen passed Norris, who defended hard against his buddy but couldn't keep him behind. What followed around lap 38 was that a lot of drivers pitted again. Verstappen had pitted for hards and he had 20 laps left to race. Hamilton pitted again in lap 39 and it was a pretty slow one, 3.4 seconds. This is also something other teams do better than Mercedes. So Verstappen, Norris and Hamilton all left Leclerc behind and those three were going for the podium spots. In lap 49 the two English drivers fought each other hard, with Hamilton coming out as the winner. Hamilton then set after Verstappen, who had taken the best out of his slightly older tyres. Hamilton did come as close as 2 seconds to the Dutchman, but mistakes by his team and himself at the start earlier in the race cost him the win. And then the plank cost him the whole result of the race, but we'll leave that out of the video. So there you have it. 3 races that Max Verstappen shouldn't have won, but he did because he and his team are awesome. Subscribe. Take care now. Doei doei. A special thanks to my channel members. Your help is much appreciated. If you want to support this channel too, click the link down below.